Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our brutally honest review of our time spent here in China. Now, this is our first trip ever to China. We spent about 70 days here. We experienced a lot. We've done a lot. But to be honest with you, when we first decided to come here and told friends and family, they had a lot of questions. They were very skeptical of the safety or the cultural practices here in China. And to be honest with you, a lot of it just simply wasn't true. But no country is perfect at all. So we've compiled a list of the good, the bad, and even very ugly thing that happened to us, which we'll share at the end. Now, we do have a lot of points to make, a lot of good points, but we would like to make a disclaimer here that this is not a badmouth China video. This is just simply an anecdotal experience that two first-time China travelers had and what they thought of it. So we're actually going to start off by giving you some neutral points. Now, the neutral points they're just kind of things that China is, things that seem unique to China that we haven't really seen anywhere else in the world thus far. So we're going to jump into that right now.
For our first neutral point, we just want to point out that cultural norms are very different in each country, and China is very unique for many of these points. Now, the biggest one that we've noticed is Chinese people are very curious, and they will stare unapologetically at you. They could be standing right next to you or across the room, and they will stare at you. Now, we notice that if we just smile, we wave, and we say ni hao, they will smile and wave back. So it's not something that's meant as any form of discourtesy at all. It's just something that is just very normal in China.
The next point that I would like to make is the lack of influence from other cultures here. Pretty much all the food, especially outside of the big tier 1 cities, is all Chinese with very little variance. If you get a food that claims to be from a different culture, it is going to be the most Chinese-ified food you could ever imagine, which is, not a horrible thing, but all the apps that work here are Chinese. All the cars on the road are Chinese. All the clothing and buildings basically have Chinese writing on them. Everybody speaks Chinese, obviously, with very little English at all. Very, very little influence outside the world. They are very proud of their Chinese heritage and culture, and it shows.
Western technology struggles in China. Google Maps is not going to work for you even if you download a VPN. I recommend you go and download an app called Maps and then find a tutorial online to change it into the English version. Google Translate can also prove to be very difficult when ordering from a menu. So just know that Chinese like to use very unique ways to describe their food. So for example, you may see a menu say phoenix claws to describe chicken feet. There's going to be a point in China where you think you ordered something and you're going to get something totally different. Just know that everything that we've tried in China has been really delicious. So you have to just kind of go with the flow sometimes. And for every time that that's happened to us, which has been a few, it's worked out really well.
All right, so those were our neutral points, and we're going to move on to the good now. We have a lot more good than neutral, and one really, really good thing about China is the top tier cities are phenomenal. Incredible infrastructure, super clean, modern, lots of things to do, excellent food, great people, and overall just phenomenal. Some of the best cities that we've personally ever been to. We love them. They are absolutely incredible. This does come with a caveat, though. I will say there is what is known as prefecture level cities, and basically they are a little bit run down. The infrastructure is a bit dated, just in total need of repair. And actually a good thing is that China is working on that repair. There is massive amounts of construction in every city we went to, big or small, from everything to the roads, to the rails, to tourist attractions. So I honestly believe that in a few years' time, when maybe they settle down with the construction a little bit, China will be one of the most beautiful, modern, and highly, highly organized cities in the entire world.
The biggest good thing I can say about China is how friendly the people are. Now, we're not just watching from the sidelines. We've been encouraged to actively participate while we're here. Now, we've been actually invited to participate in Hanfu, where we dressed in traditional Chinese clothing, hair and makeup, and when we walked around the streets and through the parks, only good things were said to us. People told us how good we looked, and they even stopped and asked us to take photos with them. What a wonderful experience. And if you've been to China and you do not go to one of the people's parks, you have not gotten the full experience. These parks are so full of life and community. On any day of the week, you can come here and you can see people flying kites, fishing in the lake with their kids. They'll be playing board games and even dancing, singing in the park, all of these wonderful things. And I have been invited to dance at every park we've been to, even without knowing any of the language and without them knowing English. So it's just such a beautiful, inclusive, and friendly community.
As full-time travelers who stick to a $75 budget a day, who stay on the road 365 days a year, affordability is a huge, huge factor for us, and China, quite honestly, is an A+. Now, our most expensive things that we buy day to day are obviously accommodations, food, and transportation, city to city and country to country. Now, coming into China, it's a little more expensive, but once we were in China, traveling around became infinitely more affordable as we didn't have to take flights over long stretches. We could take what is called a sleeper train, where you buy a bed essentially and you go long distances and you have a bed to sleep in. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can buy seats and you can actually buy standing room only. It's designed to be a very affordable means of transportation here. Beyond that, we stayed in hotels. They're honestly way better than the normal ones we stay in. We usually stay in some pretty hole-in-the-wall places, but the hotels here are ranging in about $30 to $40 a day for us, usually closer to 30 and sometimes even under 30 for very, very nice mid-tier accommodations. And when it comes to the food is the most affordable thing about China, I'd say. We've gotten meals as low as, under $3 to completely fill one of us up and then be a substantial meal. China, definitely you can spend money here. It's no doubt. You could definitely come here and spend a bag. But as far as wanting to be affordable and being mindful of it, China is no problem.
Another great point is in China, hospitals are very efficient and medical expenses are very affordable, even for foreigners. So in the United States, if you had maybe a cold, for example, you would go to your primary care physician, but you wouldn't go to the urgent care or to a hospital because those are reserved for special circumstances. In China, every time we did have an ailment, which unfortunately happened 3 times, we were advised to go to the hospital, which is very efficient. Now let's talk medical expenses. I went to the hospital, I had a CT scan, I saw a doctor, and I got 3 medications for bronchitis, and I paid a total of $45.05 US, which in the United States, even with or without insurance, could have been thousands of dollars. It was so affordable, which took a lot of the burden off when you feel sick in a foreign country. So it's definitely a great point of China.
All right, so the next good thing we're going to talk about is the holy trinity of apps here in China. If you have these apps, your trip here to China is going to be very, very easy. All 3 of these apps come in English and foreign languages, so they're very, very user-friendly. The first one is Alipay. That one you're going to use as a payment system at the register wherever you buy anything. Everybody has QR codes for it. And yeah, basically you're just going to load up your credit card there, use it to pay for things, and that's how you're going to keep track of your purchases as well. Now, WeChat is the next one, and that is a very effective English to Chinese and Chinese to English text translator. It works far better than any other app we've used. It's amazing. That is the one. And then the last app that we're going to talk about is Meishuan, which is a delivery app. If you lived in China, you could use it for delivery as, home goods or medications or food. We used it like Uber Eats, and we actually used it to order sushi from a drone into a park, which is amazing. These apps are very, very useful and will get you very, very far in China.
All right, guys, we have made it to the bad list. Now, luckily, this list is very short. We only have 2 points that we want to go over. And the first is the most obvious. The language barrier in China was real. Now, you would think, can't you just use a translator to get over that? but that's not always the case. So the first thing is that Mandarin is a very tonal language. Now you could be saying the same syllables, but with the incorrect tone, you're not saying the same word at all, which is hard if we try to communicate, but also for our translator. If somebody is willing to speak into our translator in Mandarin and it's not very clear or there's background noises, you can get some very weird translations. But also, to the effect of using a translator, we have had a few circumstances where we notice that the young adults and the kids are very excited to talk to us, try to use their English and try to use the translator. Now, some of the elderly, we're not sure if they are confused with the translator or if they're very off-put by it, but they'll wave us off. So there's been a few times where they've waved us off, they don't want to talk to us when they're trying to say something in Mandarin and we try to use the translator. So we've had to walk away from some times where we could have been making a connection with somebody or even from experiences that we wanted to have. So the language barrier is real.
All right, it's time for my bad point, guys. It's something that absolutely drove me nuts for weeks, and I've actually become a little bit more tolerant to me. And to be fair, I will call it out. It is a little bit of a me issue because of where I grew up and what I'm used to, but the social etiquette here is, in my eyes, it's horrible. It seems like a very self-centered culture in a lot of ways, and before you really jumped on my throat on that one, just let me explain. So one good example of it is open mouth coughing, and when I say that, I mean just like that. Not coughing, not looking away, simply coughing, open mouth, wherever they are. I've had people literally cough on my face. I've been sneezed on because, again, they don't cover their mouth or turn away. I've seen people snot rocket on the sidewalk on the daily directly next to me. I have, what else? I've got a list here because it's so long, and I could come up with way more, but basically I had someone pick their nose while talking to me less than a foot away from my face. Smoking is absolutely everywhere in this country. Me and Kiersten don't smoke, and we actually book hotels that only say non-smoking. And here in China, every single hotel we've had a problem with smoke. We will even have non-smoking signs in our room and an ashtray directly under that sign in the same room. So, and when I brought it up to hotels, sometimes they just tell us, well, they're Chinese. There's nothing we can do. And that's just kind of how it is. Smoking is everywhere. I even had someone in our comment section tell us that smoking is a human right here. So smoking is inevitable. It is not something you're going to avoid. Lines. It doesn't seem like Chinese people really like lines that much, and we've had a million people cut us in all types of lines without even batting an eye. And privacy is like, there is no privacy here. We mentioned the staring earlier, but it goes farther than that. So Kiersten mentioned that we have been to the doctor 3 times now, and I actually went to the doctor because I somehow got a plantar's wart on my foot. Whatever, it happens. But basically, I went in to get it frozen off, and people came into the room and just stared at me holding my foot while I'm getting liquid nitrogen put on it. And that could never possibly happen in the US. We would have an absolute fit over not having any privacy in our moments, and that's just literally not a thing here. To say all that though, China does have its own social etiquettes. You can't put, or you shouldn't put, your chopsticks straight up in a bowl of rice. They respect their elders. They have their own social norms that they do stick to. But as a foreigner coming here and dealing with all that, and honestly so much more that I can't come up with, because honestly I could sit here all day with it, it is very frustrating. It is hard to deal with, especially for prolonged periods of time. All right. You made it all the way to the end of the video, and we are going to reward you with one of the ugliest things that ever happened to us while traveling. Disclaimer though, this is not indicative of the people and how they are and how they treat people. This is a one-off experience and is told basically for entertainment purposes only. But we traveled up to Inner Mongolia to go to the grasslands here, as well as the desert, and learn about the Mongolian people and what it's like up here. And basically, as soon as we got to our hotel in Hohhot, the hotel works with a tour group, and they wanted to get us in contact with that tour group because it's basically the only main thing to do here. So we agree, and we meet with a representative of that company. We have some reservations because we don't speak Chinese, obviously, and we've been in China long enough to know that a lot of people really don't. So we tell her, like, we have to have English translation in some capacity. They need to speak it, or they need to be able to use a translator and convey the information to us, because we actually do really want to learn. And she promises us, she absolutely sells us this package. It's about $65 each, which isn't like the most expensive thing in the world, but it's definitely the most we've ever felt scammed out of. We agree to take the tour. We get on the bus the day of the tour, and nobody speaks English. The bus driver doesn't speak English. People on the bus already don't speak English, and we're like, that's fine, you know, that's not our guide. We eventually pick up our guide. Our guide doesn't speak any English at all. We think, no problem, let's ask if they're comfortable using a translator, and basically they pretty much agreed to it. We get on the bus, we pick up everyone else, and we start driving. As we're driving away from the city, she begins an hour-long presentation, and we have no clue what's happening. We are waiting patiently for our turn at a translation. After, like I said, an hour, we come up to a rest stop for a break for everybody, and she just kind of is done. And so we gather her attention and we go, what was that about? And she basically only translated into our translator verbatim, it was an introduction to the grasslands, which we're like, okay, and we wanted to know about it. And she basically just ignored us, and that was the first red flag. And that was the first moment we knew, like, we messed up.
Okay, so we leave that rest stop, and we drive for quite some time still with no explanation, and we get to our first roadside attraction in Inner Mongolia and in the grasslands. And at this point, half the people load off the bus, and then the bus starts moving, so we're in a little bit of a panic because we've got no explanation as to where we are or what we're doing. Luckily, the bus only pulled about, a few yards away and parked, and then the rest of the people got off. But everybody kind of dispersed in their own directions. So again, we're very confused. We don't have like a tour guide to follow. So I get off the bus and I find the tour guide, and I'm trying to get an explanation as to where we are, what we're doing, etc. And the only explanation I get is a picture sent to me on WeChat, and it just has explanation like horseback riding and a dollar amount. There's 3 or 4 items to do. So we're also confused too, because this is not what we were expecting, to just stop at different locations and be paying for different experiences. Anyways, as I'm trying to get more details as to where we are and if there's any like free activities at this place, she walks away from me as I'm just trying to communicate with her and simply refuses to communicate with me. And so I try texting or WeChat message to the person who sold us the trip, and she said, I'm not there. What do you want me to do for you? Go find her. So it's not great customer service at this point on either front. I do find her eventually, and the only thing I can get her to tell me after 45 minutes is when the bus leaves. So we're both pretty fed up at this point. We decide we're just going to wait on the bus. Got about an hour and a half until the bus leaves. She did, however, come on the bus as we were sitting there, which was not a good decision for her because she came on the bus just to try to sell us horseback riding again. After I said, no, I don't want to, we're really frustrated. We asked for a refund. They denied. We said we just want to go back into Hohhot. They denied that. So she comes on the bus and she starts to use a translator only when she wanted to. And Tyler looked at her and he said, you don't want to translate? Bye-bye. And he did that. Bye-bye. Very dismissive, but also we felt so disrespected to this point. And she looks at him, and all of a sudden, she can speak English and says,
Why bye-bye? Why bye-bye?
And then proceeds to badmouth him to me in translation, saying, oh, I just have no words for this, and is so surprised and about how disrespected she was. And I said, we feel disrespected. We're not getting what we paid for. We're not getting any explanation. We're just sitting on a bus in the middle of nowhere. She proceeds to try to sell me horseback riding. And I'm like, read the room. I said, no, I don't want to go horseback riding. And then she tries to give me a ticket to go into, she first tries to sell us a ticket to go into this gardens, fields, whatever we're at. And when I said no, she said, why don't I just give you a free ticket to go in? So after she's disrespected my husband, now she wants to give me a ticket for free to go in and ignores him. So again, just horrible service. We said no, honestly, just leave us alone. We're going to wait here until the bus leaves. We'll go to the next location. And at minimum, I got her to tell us what time the bus went to each different location and just the general itinerary, nothing else. No explanation of the grasslands or the people, but just lunch at this time, dinner at this time, hotel at this time. So we take the bus and we go to the next location.
All right, so we drive over to the next location. I want to say maybe another 30 minutes. We are probably close to 2.5 hours outside of the city now. We are in complete remote grasslands. There are hardly any houses or buildings of any sort. We roll up to what is basically a yurt hotel, or like a traditional Mongolian huts is basically what they are. Each person gets their own individual hut. And then there is like a giant hut in the middle that is more like a lobby convention center type thing. We pull up in our bus. There are people there in Mongolian attire that are waiting to greet us with some type of greeting ceremony. The guide does not even try to look at us or say anything about what we're supposed to do or what it means or anything about it quite at all. Again, I am very fed up at this point. I feel very disrespected, and I don't really feel like participating in something that they clearly do not want me to participate in. So everybody gets off the bus, they do the ceremony. I kind of just walk on by. I don't make any faces, I don't say anything. I just kind of just walked on by. But Kiersten, being the nice person she is, tries again. Another little olive branch, and she says, I want to insert myself into the situation and try to make myself a part of it, essentially. And so they show her the physical actions of the ceremony. But again, when she asks about what the ceremony is or means, she gets absolutely nothing. And they basically from there direct us into the convention center yurt or whatever I want to call it, to have a family meal. And we sit down with maybe, what do you say, 8 other people at a table?
Yeah, about 10, 12 people at a table.
Yep. So we're sitting down with a bunch of strangers who can feel the tension. They can see that we're not happy. And we're supposed to share a meal with them. They come in to do the meal. They give a speech before the meal. Again, no explanation as to what it is. The dishes are laid down. No explanation as to what the dishes are, even though, we want to know. And there was actually a little kid sitting next to me, and he was the best one of the group. He was maybe 12 years old. He knew a little bit of English, a tiny bit, but he knew how to use a translator too. And he wanted to talk to us, and he wanted to be nice to us, and he wanted to, let us know what the dishes were and what was good and what wasn't. But after that very awkward meal, which was fine, I guess. A lot of people at the table did say welcome to China, so they were trying and obviously could feel the tension. We make our way out of this place, and everybody else goes to the horseback riding that they've been trying to sell to us. And so because we didn't buy it, we asked the guide, what are we supposed to do, And she basically, no lie, just points off into this random field. She's like, you can go there. What does that mean? What's over there? We have no idea. There was no explanation. We actually walked that direction and found nothing. There was nothing. It was an open field.
So after that, with the only information we're giving is, this time meet at the bus, this time's dinner, etc., we know that we're meeting back at the bus and we're going to a traditional Mongolian village, which we're very excited about. We're here to actually learn about the culture. And so we get on the bus, we head towards this location, explanation given, again, no translation, no surprise at this point. We're just trying to get what we can out of it and trying to alter our expectations the best we can. And they have a specific way of introducing themselves with respect when they get off the bus and meet the people of the village. We're not told, but that same sweet little kid tells us there's a hand gesture and a thing to say. Again, Tyler chooses not to participate because if he's not been given these instructions, he's pretty done for the day. I try again, and I get some giggles from the tour guide even, so I don't know how to feel about that. I'm just participating the same way everybody else is. Clearly, we're all uncomfortable. So we get into the village, and right before she's going to be given her guide around, I said, can you give me some facts about what we're seeing? So at this point, I'm not even expecting like a full translation of what it is. I said, just, can you give me some facts so that I can appreciate and understand the culture and what we're seeing here? And her response to me was, I find it very hard to translate. And I said, I don't understand. You're using a translator right now. You just type and it translates. And then she said, it's not very important. Just take in the views and the scenery. So I am annoyed, but we're here, and we are stranded with people who will not communicate with us. So
now, not only is she telling us we're not important, but I do like to note that she is saying that her culture and their culture is not important.
Disrespectful on so many fronts. So we continue with the group, and this kid can obviously, see what's happening here, very mature for his age. And so as we walk with the tour group and just told to take it in visually, somebody else starts actually guiding the group in Chinese and Mongolian. And so the kid starts translating a few things, just saying, this hut is important because of this, etc. On the translator, it's not even speaking to us. And I don't know if his parents got upset or if the tour guide got upset because they stop him. So the only person who's trying to give us an olive branch here is told to stop, which is so sad because he was using, he's had such a good heart for this. And the tour guide tells us, and this was the final straw, tour guide told us, just go off on your own and go take in the views. And they dismiss us from the group. So they refused to give us a refund, refused to take us back to Hohat. They've dismissed us from the group. And not only that, I will say, I'm only going to say how Tyler feels because he's told me, he feels very disrespected and upset. For me, I'm embarrassed. This is embarrassing to me now to be told, just go on as the whole group's watching and we're dismissed.
Quite literally shooed away like
yes.
a nuisance.
Yes, as paying customers too. And so we're thinking, we've tried to get out of this situation already, so why are we making this so hard? So anyways, Tyler, as we leave, we can't even find our way out of these huts. Tyler's fed up and he starts voicing his opinion very loudly, with all the frustrations, admittedly so, and saying, I want to leave, I'm done with this. And so the tour guide comes up to us very flustered, obviously, because she doesn't understand how to handle anything. And she is still trying to sell me as he's upset. She's trying to get me to go look at some viewpoint, some scenery. And I said, I don't want to. And then she tries to sell me a horse training show or some show. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, we just want to leave. If we cannot go back to Hohat, take me back to the hotel. Let everybody else stay, take me back to the hotel. And it takes about 20 minutes arguing back and forth for her to comprehend we are done. We do not want to be sold any more packages. We do not want to be dismissed. You've embarrassed us. You've been disrespectful to us. We're uncomfortable. We're ready to leave. And they get somebody to take us back to the hotel who we don't even know, in a regular vehicle, not even in a bus or anything. I don't care at this point. Take me back to the hotel. And before we leave, I say, I want to go back to Hohat. This is not working. I'm sorry. They sold a package. They said you could translate to English. You don't speak English. You don't want to translate. That's not my fault. Not your fault. They said you would. I don't know what to do here. Try to let her not be the bad guy. They sold us a package like this. Anyways, I'm rambling, but we convince her that at 7:30 there will be a car waiting for us with the same car and the same guy to take us back to Hohat, and she agrees. So a few hours pass and we're in our hut, and then we get a nice message.
We are now in our hut back at the hotel, and we get this message around 7:30. It's right around 7:30 that the ride is not coming and that we should just come and rejoin the group. And basically at this point, I have surmised that she keeps trying to resell us things and reintroduce us to the group once we're fed up, simply because they do not want to have to issue any type of refund, and that if we become a part of the group, they will have a reason not to, even though they are actively pushing us out and telling us that we are not part of the group and to go off on our own, which makes zero sense. So we sit around at this hotel for hours, 6 hours maybe, and we're just waiting. We're fed up. She tells us this over a message, and we're just done. So we, long story short, basically confront her and tell her, you need to get us the hell out of here. They had a group that was leaving because there are 1-day tours and 2-day tours. So a 1-day tour, they don't sleep. 2-day tour, they sleep over. and they had a one-day tour that was going home that night at 8 or 8:30, and that's the one that we got on. They did not bring us back to do good customer service. They brought us back because it was convenient for them to do so, and they only would do it after they ridiculed us and made Kiersten here admit that we were at fault and we were terminating the tour and that they were of no fault of anything. And they basically held us hostage in remote Mongolia.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. And I did try refusing at first, but they were very insistent. Well, then you're staying. And so for us, it was more important for our safety and sanity to get out of that situation because it was very stressful. So that was the worst travel experience I have ever had.
All right, so that was our list of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Again, the ugly is not indicative of the Chinese culture or people. It is literally just a one-off that happens. You can get scammed in any country, and it is something you should look out for when traveling. However, let us know. Let us know what you think of the list. Is there anything you would add? Tell us your horror story while traveling. We would love to hear it. Till next time, guys, safe travels.
Bye, guys.